And I'm going to be coming live to you for about the next hour or so, taking your questions on anything career related, such as what is a cover letter? How do you write a cover letter? Why is your CV not getting the responses that it should be? Why is it not leading to interviews? What is the disability confidence scheme? And more. I will be taking questions on a first come, first served basis. So if you have a question, just put it down below and I will pick it up. Just to let you know, I also run Leap Forward Careers, and thank you for the likes. Leap Forward Careers, a career support organization to help those who are trying to navigate the UK marketplace by providing support for CV writing, CV review, interview prep, interview preparation, providing you with anything relating to interviews, and also to finding and hunting for jobs. It is very difficult, and talk about strategy. How do you find a job? Where do you look? We offer services to provide you with both the to provide you with finding jobs, sending you updates, jobs that may be of interest for you, and also to on the site leapstartcareers.com there is a bunch of guides, a interview test database for you to ask questions, and also to ask questions for interviews to get the response, and also to it breaks down it will ask you questions and how to respond. So today it is going to be a fun day. One of the questions I get, and what I'll spend the next couple minutes on, is it's talking about the third interview and interviewing in general, because I am getting a lot of questions from individuals in regards to interviews and preparing for interviews. So like I said, leapstartcareers.com does have a interview database where it asks you interview questions and tells you what is your strength on it and gives you suggested replies on how you can improve on it. It also allows you to ask your interview questions that you really struggle with. So, like, tell me something about yourself. Why should we hire you over somebody else? What do you bring to the job? All these types of questions you can ask the database. It will give you a reply. So any question you have that you struggle with in an interview, it can help you. And likewise, today, since we're talking about the idea of interviews and third interviews, on one of the other social media platforms, and I've done content on it under another TikTok handle, I will be posting a kind of my experience with the scheme, and it's one that I have written a bit about on the social media website about. So if you're interested on the disability confidence scheme, I will be posting the link once it goes live. So you can check back. It will be going live at 8 a.m. today, British Summer Time. So 8 a.m. British Summer Time. So check back for that. So let's get to the question about interviews and the third interview. So if you haven't joined my previous live streams, the one thing what I will say about third round interviews is this: by the time you hit the third round interviews, it's no longer about if you can do the job. It's gone past that. So basically, if you're doing the third interview, what it comes down to is this: it is more about It's more about um, it's more about do you fit? It's about do you fit into the organization? Are you the right choice for the job? It is that. It is more, to put it simply, the risk. And typically, and why do I say is it risk? It's because at this stage, what is going on, and typically at the third interview, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, you will get more senior managers in it. So you'll get more senior managers to take a look at, are you going to be the right fit for the role? Are you going to be able to work well with the team? Are you going to fit well within the organization? You know, and that's where it's going to come. And so when when you're preparing, sorry, I'm beginning to lose my voice here. So when you're starting to prepare for your interview, for your third round interview, you need to prepare differently because yes, you still need to keep up about the organization. You still need to be able to talk about your skills and what you bring, but also to what you need to start to be able to have that conversation about is, why are you a good fit? Why should they hire you over somebody else? And the way you really begin to show that is by showing that you have a genuine interest in that organization. You have a general interest, a very deep interest in the role, because at this stage, especially in the UK, at this time, what is really happening is this: when you're sitting there in that interview room, you have to remember that it is a very much an employer's market. There's roughly, when you factor in those who are looking to change jobs or make career changes, probably talking about 3 applicants for every job available. So what does that mean in real numbers? There's roughly 707,000 vacancies available at the moment. Multiply that by a factor of 3, you're talking over 2.1 million applicants for 707,000 roles, which means basically, if you do the simple math, about 1.4 million people will not get a job. So there is a lot more applicants than there are jobs. And so it means that the employer can be very, very picky about who they hire because they can get the very much the right fit. So when unemployment was a lot lower, it meant that employers couldn't be as selective with candidates. It meant that they could easily bring in, when it was lower, they had to take somebody who maybe met the role like 60-70% of the time and then train them up. But now they can really look for that, that perfect circle peg to go into that circle hole. And so it is, it is very much a point where you really need to be able to interview and be prepared. And prepared is also includes being able to express both verbally and emotionally, through body language, an interest, that you're interested in the role, you're interested in the organization. You go well beyond meeting the skills for the role, because at this stage, at the third interview, let's be real, you've already proved that you can do the role. You've proved to them you can do the role. But now the question really starts becoming is, how well do you fit into the organization? How well do you fit into the department? And how well do you fit into the team? And that is really the question you need to be able to answer at that stage. And do expect that they will also be looking at things like how well do you handle pressure. They may ask a lot of questions, make you a bit uncomfortable. How can you make decisions under pressure? How do you respond under pressure? And it is that type of situation you just need to be prepared for. So the more you can prepare, the more you can, you know, clarify why you applied for the role based on both the company and role profile, the better off you will be. And this opens up kind of the question, how do you answer interview questions? I mean, there are different ways, and there's no, well, I won't say there's a right or wrong way, but when you're answering interview questions, it's important that you don't talk about hypotheticals, because the more hypothetical, the more you use hypotheticals, the more it comes across as though, the more it comes across that you maybe don't really have the skills, but you understand, what is required, but you don't really have the skills because you really can't provide the evidence that you've done it. And so what you need to do at this stage is what I say is, and I call it CAR method. It's very much a simple storytelling. Very much a storytelling response. And it is very much context, actions, result. Why did it come up? What did you do? To advocate, to bring about the change. What did you do to bring the change about? And how did you do it? And finally, what was the results of your action, your intervention? What is the result? What is the results of what you have done? So basically, it's very much a simple storytelling. This is what comes up. This is what I did. It's not about, again, you have to remember when you're answering interview questions, they're very much almost counterintuitive, because socially we're always taught that we need to think of others and we need to give people credit for what they've done. In the interview, it's a lot different, because really the interviewers don't care what Marion Accounting did to help you, or Mark and Finance did to help you bring this, to help you deliver. What they care about is, how did you interact with Mary? How did you interact with Mark? What were the conversations? What did you do? Did you, delegate some of the work to Mark and Mary? It is this whole story that you need, and present to them. It's about your actions. It's about your actions. It's about your intervention. What is it? It's about your segment of that piece of work. There may have been other pieces of work, and they don't care. They only care about what you did and what was the result of your interaction. So always keep that in mind when you're preparing. And when you're preparing for the third interview, I can't stress this enough. Make sure you know something about the organization. Make sure you know something about their values, because you will probably get some type of value related question. You may also get like a commercial awareness question. What do you know about the organization? What do you think is our biggest challenges? And it is really, there will be taking a closer look at the type of questions you ask, because if you ask them questions, they'll be taking a closer look to see, do you really understand the role? Do you really understand what is being asked of you to do the role? And do you understand, and work out why have you applied? So if you can do that, that will be great. And it's always you know, it is always going to be, you know, when you're doing an interview, it's always going to be about you, you know, and make sure you always keep in mind what is the job description. What did you say on your, cover letter? What did you put onto your CV? Because you're going to always have to come back to that and keep that in line, because they're going to start to look at, especially with AI, if you're not aware, then they'll start to think it's AI generated, and again, it becomes more of a kind of a trust issue. So it's always important to always kind of keep in mind about, um, you know, what have you said previously, and always make sure you keep in line with that. So, if you're just joining, you do like the feed, please like, please share, and please follow. And if you do feel inclined but don't feel as you have to, please send gifts, because it really does help me to know what people like, what is really, resonating with people. And if you're just joining and wondering who I am, I'm Brian from Career Advice UK on TikTok. I do run Leap Forward Careers, found at leapstartcareers.com. And I do provide on the site um, topics. I covered very much different related employment topics, along with providing a lot of guides, disability, neurodivergent, ATS, provide the book UK Jobseekers Playbook 2026. Also, Career Change UK, Career Change UK 2026 for you. And I've been talking for about the last 10 minutes or so about the CAR method to interviewing. And there is a guide on the CAR method and how to answer interview questions. So there is a lot there for you. So just take a look. And like I said, if you do follow me on other social media sites, on one of them today in a couple of hours at 8 a.m. British Summer Time, I will be releasing, it will be going live on it, about my experiences with the Disability Confidence Scheme and what I think good looks like. So I would encourage you, and once it does go live, I will put in the link to it so you can take a look and read it. So the link will be in my profile once it's live. So make sure you check back in about 4 hours at 4 a.m. Not 4 a.m. Excuse me, 8 a.m. British Summer Time, and I think you'll like it. And what have I, and one of the things, I guess, one of the areas I do kind of do like to talk about from time to time is disability. And I do talk a little bit about it because I do think that there are, easily a bit of, there's a bit of, of a gap. Because when you look at, and statistically, unemployment figures will show you, disabled are unemployed twice as much as non-disabled, and that is not so much it's just a simple numerical gap. It's I think there are systematic failures, and one of them I think is, and I talk a lot about, is one of the biggest failures. I think it is really, hey Nicole, good to see you, is because, and Megan, and Dewinnie, and Clip, good to see you all, is the Disability Confidence Scheme, and the approach that tends to get used in the UK is that we legislate, and then we go with soft law fixes, and then come in with more schemes, and then try to rewrite the legislation. So we just build a pile of complex set of laws that really just don't work. Um, that just don't work. So if you're wondering why do I do 4 a.m., it is the time that I'm up. I usually do a few other things after I'm done. My dogs are downstairs right now asleep, but sometimes I'll bring them up here so they do go out. I have a few things that I do right afterwards, so it is a good time to do it. Plus, two, I do get um, a reasonable amount of traffic at this time to do the lives because it does work quite well for me at this time. So it does work better than if I would do this at noon. I've done a few at noon, 6 and 8 p.m. and kind of trialed it at different times, and they just don't work as well. At noon, I will get less traffic, and at 8, 6 and 8 p.m., I almost get like no traffic at all. So to get traffic and to get people, it is about 4 a.m. does work because for me in the UK, I'm getting up at this time. At this time also too, it also works too because I will get US traffic because it's still in the evening, and also a bit of traffic European and also Middle East because they're running about 1 to 2 hours ahead. So these would be people who are just getting up and ready for work. So 4 a.m. really does seem to be a very nice fit time. In the UK, it's people who are either getting up or finishing their night shift because I do get a lot of night shift people who are watching on the night shift. So yeah, so it is probably, so the simple answer is it's 4 a.m. is the best time to do it for me. So I will typically do 4 a.m. So yeah, so if you are just joining, do like the feed, please please share it and please follow. And if you do feel so inclined, but don't feel as though you have to, please send gifts because it does help me to know what resonates with my viewers and it helps me to plan my content. And so, yeah, so if you are just joining, feel free to ask any questions. I do pick up questions. If you are, for example, one of the big questions I get, if you are sending out a CV and no response, are you sending out? Because it is one I do get. With no response. So if you are, are you sending out CV with no response? Because it's one question I do get. Or the other question I get is, how do you and I will pin this one up as soon as the time runs out on the other one. The other question is how do you write a CV with no experience? What do you do? What is your approach? And I will post a question in a moment, in about 20 seconds or more. So what is, you know, so what I will do now is see if TikTok will allow me to post this. So yes, so if are you sending out oh, why did oh, that's funny, I didn't just okay, so that's me. So the question for you is, hey Hector and Harry, and Mary, good to see you, and Megan. So if the question here is, how do write a CV without with no experience? And I have done it in the past, but I haven't for several months. It's about 6 months since I've done the last time. Ran a CV clinic talking about how do do a CV. So I've run CV clinics, and talked about how do you write a CV, how do you draft one, and what do you put onto CV, what should you exclude, and kind of gone through the whole gamut with it. But again, so the question for you is, how do you write a CV with no experience? What do you do? How do you handle it? Have you faced it? Because I know a lot of people who are, and especially right now, we're coming up to university graduating time, so people are graduating university or just have completed A levels, so people are going out and applying for jobs right now. And the question really becomes is, when you're going out there, and if you're applying for one of the very few remaining graduate scheme jobs, how do you make your CV stand out? What do you put in? Because at the end of the day, if you're applying for a graduate scheme job, you really have to look at it from the employer's perspective. What they'll get is roughly 140 applications with people with very minimal work experience. And all it will be is the degree that they have. So when you're putting your CV in to a pile of 400 CVs, 150 CVs or so, how do you make your CV stand out? What do you put on it to ensure that the recruiter, the employer, the hiring manager sees that you have the skills and ability to perform the role? So what do you do? How do you do it? And that's the question, really, is what do you do? Does anyone know how you handle that situation? So really the way you handle such a situation is this. It is what you use is what's called a functional CV. It highlights your skills and while de-emphasizing job experience. It builds on your skills, your experience, your skills that you have, and you use for your experiences, and it draws on anything that you've had. It be volunteering experience, volunteering, academic project work that you may have done, anything that you can relate back to the job description and relate to the job itself. And that's how you basically do it. And typically, if you're just starting out, it is it is typically a one-page CV. It is a one-page CV. So I'm going to toss into here is how do you answer the question? How do you answer the question? Tell me something about yourself. So, so how do you answer that? In a job interview when the interviewer asks you, "Tell me something about yourself." What is it that you say? What is it that you include into your reply? Be interested to know, has anyone been asked that and struggled? Or find that once you answer it, the interview kind of starts to tank, and it is a, it is, it's that point where it begins to tank. So do you know how to answer it? Because it is, yeah, I know, Ian, it's been a bit, yeah, it's been for me the last couple, for the last month, went on holiday, and yeah, so it is for the last, just came back, for part of June, was on holiday, and so I really haven't done a lot in June with the live streams because it's been so it has been, so I'm getting back after getting back from holiday back onto doing the live streams because I wound up going on holiday and getting severely sunburned, and so kind of waited until I got over a bit of that, and kind of got readjusted to the bit of time change. So it's picking it up again after getting back and kind of getting back into the routine after holiday. So I am getting back. So yeah, so and getting back into the routine of doing them. So I do sometimes will take a day off just to kind of just have a break from it. But yeah, I'm trying to keep it as regular as possible to get back into it again because it does do enjoy them, and have been able to really been able to do a bit of helping with people, which I do enjoy, and kind of using my insight into it. So I'm trying to keep it as regular as possible. But it has been, plus to the heat after coming back, hasn't really helped. There's been a few nights because of the heat and humidity where I haven't slept and not been able to do it. To do the live, so basically it's not been as regular due to the heat, along with being on holiday in June. So, and getting back into the regular end of things. Yeah, so if we're talking about CVs, it is really, and you're looking, like I said, it's your first CV, you're graduating. and applying for your first real job. People are going. The reality is you have to kind of start to think about from the perspective of the employer hiring manager. If you're doing entry level, they know that you don't really have experience. They know the role is going to attract people with limited experience. And so, what is really important at that stage is really to focus on what you can bring to them and making sure that you can, when you go into interview, because your CV is it's kind of like your calling card, your CV and cover letter is your introduction and kind of calling card saying, this is what I can do, and this is what you're asking for, this is what I can do. And that's what it is about. And it is really about that. And so when you're writing your CV, what you need to do is be able to write something when you go into interview, be able to provide Rebecca, to be able to provide the evidence that you have done it, because that's what evidence interviews are about. They are about writing. They are about showing you have done the role and that you're able to answer, and able to do the role, able to provide that evidence. So if you are just joining and you do like the feed, please please share, and please follow. And if you do feel inclined, please send gifts, as it does help me to know. But again, don't feel so you have to let me know what is resonating with people, and talking a little bit about CVs today and interviewing. Because I really haven't had a lot of CV questions, but I do get right now a lot of interview questions, especially in regards to third round interviews. And third round interviews, it's really, I think, it is, I think, important when you're doing the third interview is to remember things change at the third interview. And if you're preparing the same way you did for the first two, it's going to fall flat for you, and most likely it's not going to result in an offer. So if you're just joining and you do have a question, please feel free to drop a question. And it doesn't have to be on CV or interview. It can be anything career related. I know clearing has opened up with ACAS, so anything on clearing related questions like personal statements, degree programs, course selection. Again, it's a question. Happy to pick up. Or if you're looking to start a business, and you want to know where to get advice, funding, and stuff, again, put it down. We'll be happy to pick it up. Or interview, is how do you answer questions? Or what is the way to respond to this type of question? What is the best response to the question? And again, it is one of these things. I've done some content on it recently. And it's just important to remember when you don't always have to answer every question in an interview, especially when they are questions related to personal protected characteristics under the Equality Act. So anything covered by the Equality Act, they can't ask, nor can they ask indirectly, because it can be discriminatory, such as, they can't ask you really, where did you go to school, family plans, how many kids do you have, anything like that, because that's pretty much kind of beginning to kind of border on um, being discriminatory. But again, the issue starts to, the challenge really is the tribunal. If you bring a claim, being able to prove it, and especially when you're at just the application stage, it's very difficult. Not impossible, but very difficult. It's a big, huge mountain to climb, and it is one of those things. It is difficult. So it's always what I would always would say is, if you felt something uncomfortable and you leave the interview feeling not right, it's always worth considering flagging the issue with HR, and talking to them about it, and raise your concerns about it and what happened, and be able to document what was asked, who was in the interview, what time you were interviewed, the role, and and anything else you can provide, and raise it with them. And then if it doesn't go your way, which most likely it won't, and you're still pretty kind of reeling from it and really left you in a bad way, then the next thing I would say is, a lot of employment solicitors will offer like a free 30-minute consult or citizen advice bureau, and it may just be worth having a chat with them to see where do you go from there with it, because it is, I think sometimes it is a hard slope to go up, but it is sometimes worth it. Hey Hannah, good to see you. And Dora and Connor, good to see you. So yes, if you've been in an interview and it's left you feeling uncomfortable afterwards because the question that you got asked wasn't what you were expecting, then I would strongly encourage you to raise the issue with HR right away, because it's, when you're doing interviews, the one thing you have to remember is that it's very much time critical. So if you wait days or a couple of days to raise it, by then the decision is made, and to force their hand, you really need to walk out of there and just say, geez, I don't feel right about this, and then contact HR and raise the complaint right away, because it's the only way then you can do it. Otherwise, again, it's not easy, and chances are, if you're trying to reverse or stop the decision, if you wait a day or two, it's probably going to be too late. So yes, so coming down to the last 15 minutes or so, I will be back tomorrow 4 a.m. British Summer Time, taking your questions. Anything career related, and still have about 15 minutes left. I can easily take one or two more questions, anything career related. So if you have a question on CVs, cover letters, interviewing, job offers, salary negotiations, starting your own business on UCAS, talking about course selection, university programs, anything career related or career change, feel free to ask. Like I said, used to get a lot of business startup and career programs, but it's kind of gone kind of quiet on those, I suspect economically it hasn't made it worth it to start business, and probably I would say we're probably entering clearing, so we may get some more clearing questions. So if you have a clearing question, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And if you have anything I have talked about in the past, apprenticeships. And so people have asked about apprenticeships. So is anyone looking at doing an apprenticeship? Because apprenticeships, so anyone, so anyone applying to apprenticeships? So anything, a danger mouse. So if you are applying, feel free to ask any questions on apprenticeships. Happy to pick up. So yes. So yeah, I will pick up questions relating to apprenticeships. So, yes. So if you are just joining and you do like the feed, please like, please share, please follow, and if you do feel inclined but don't feel so you have to, please thank us, as it does help me to know what is resonating with people. If you're just joining and wondering who I am, I'm Brian, Career Advice UK. Typically live stream every day, 4 a.m. British Summer Time, on career-related questions. I do also run and founder of Leap Forward Careers, found at leapstartcareers.com, that provides a lot of information, some free, some at a cost. I do provide gift guides and books on various topics for you. I have written UK Jobseekers Playbook 2026. It talks about the whole, navigating the whole recruitment process from beginning to end. You know, CV, cover letters, interviews. It also talks about, I also have information on career change, how to prepare for a career change, what to consider when making a career change, preparing your CV for application tracking software systems, how to make sure your CV is formatted. Do offer both CV and cover letter templates, just to name a few, and also provide services such as CV writing, CV support, interview preparation, interview support. There's also, like I say, a interview database that asks questions for you to answer, and it does feedback on the strengths and weaknesses and how the answer can be improved. Likewise, the database also allows you to ask how to respond to interview questions. So you can ask it like, why should we hire you? What is your weakness? Tell me something about yourself, and it will give you a structured response, and it will cover the response for various sectors. So I would encourage you to take that. And finally, today on another social media platform, and I will post a link into my profile once it goes live. And I do talk about the disability confidence scheme. And I would encourage you to take a look at that. So it is chock full of information. And again, I would encourage you now, as we're kind of winding down a bit, to take a look at the content that I have, because I do have a lot of content on the area of careers, covering everything from CVs to negotiating salary, start your own business, and more. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. Um, so yeah, so we are, you know, so yeah, so I will be back tomorrow at 4 a.m. British Summer Time. And I will be taking your questions. Hey, the Walmart bag and Thean and Maiden, good to see you all. So yeah, so I will be back. And today I've been talking a bit about third interviews, interviewing CVs, and also talking a little bit about the disability confidence scheme. And I still do have, roughly 8 minutes here, maybe more, if it does get extended, to take your questions. So I do have time to take one more, or at least one more, maybe two more questions regarding UK job market. One thing I do post about and content talk about is UK job market and why it is very difficult to get a job these days in the UK. What is the struggle? What is the pain point? And it is one of the things that people do have to kind of realize with it. It's what it is, people do have to begin to realize is that jobs do still exist. It is probably a bit harder. A lot of them have also moved over to kind of the agency realm because the risk for the business is less by taking an agency. Because as the expenses go up for businesses, they can easily cut agency staff without having to cut permanent staff. And it's an easier way for them to cut expenses than having to cut permanent staff and having to pay redundancy. So it does. I do think it does work well. I do a lot of my work via agency. I do find with agency the pay tends to be higher than permanent, and sometimes it can be about 30% higher, even when taxes are taken out. It can be, depending on how many hours it is and stuff, it can be quite. Hey, Randall, Jenny, Usman, good to see you. Good to see you all. So yeah, so it is, it is still there. So I would say take a look at agency work, because it is one place where jobs are, because it is a risk. It is a risk for a business agency, and by moving it to agency instead of offering it, it is it's a risk. It cuts their risk, and it cuts their expenses because it's a fixed expense. They just pay in the agency a fixed rate based on the number of hours worked, and all the taxes, pension, and all that is the result of the agency. And so yeah, so it is, take a look at agencies as one, as your perspective. Nice thing about agencies is also too, the notice period can be shorter. So if you are offered something permanently, it can easily, you know, you have a short turnaround time, so it makes you more attractive to employers. Um, so yes, so take a look at agencies as one way to do it. Again, if you're looking to start your own business, um, one of the quickest and easiest ways is getting support through your local authority council. In the UK, they do provide a lot of support for those who are looking to start a business. And looking to support a business. So yes, they will provide the support you need for the business and direct you. They don't typically give funding grants, but they can direct you. To getting the support for grants and stuff. So, and I will be back tomorrow 4 a.m. British Summer Time, taking your questions. Hey, TTD, it's good to see you. I would encourage you tomorrow. I will be back tomorrow taking your questions. I would encourage you to take a look at my content that I have. If you like any of it, please like, please share, and please follow that. Hey, how are you doing? Losing a little bit of my voice here. I'm not 100% sure why it is. Why I'm losing a bit of my voice. I'm not sure exactly why, because typically, at least during this, I don't usually leave it. But I am. So I will, like I say, take your questions. If you have somebody has a quick question, don't need to really quickly rush off. So if somebody has a quick question for me, more than happy to pick it up and answer it for you. If you're just joining, I would encourage you to stop back after 8 a.m. British Summer Time in just less than 4 hours from now to check out the link to my post that will be published on another social media website, which I will put the link into my profile. So you can see it. Hey, Miss hey, Samir, good to see you all. And user 6111, good to see you. So yeah, so take a look at that. And the topic will be my own personal experience. Oh, well, thank you so much, TTDS, for the roses. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you. Very much appreciated. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much. So yes, so like I said, that's coming up, and I will be talking about the topic. You too. You have a really good day. Thank you so much. And tomorrow, today when it comes live, talking about the disability confidence scheme. And for those of you who don't know it, and why I've raised it kind of a bit and written about my own experience with it, disability confidence scheme is simply this. Those of you who have a recognized disability, because, hey, Helen, good to see you. There is a government scheme out there that states that that employers can sign up to, that states if you meet the minimum requirements of the role, they are to give it to you. The issue really is this. A lot of times, and from my own experience with somebody with asthma applying using this scheme, they don't follow up with it. it is, it's almost a way to, almost, in my opinion, my experience, is almost a way to guarantee you don't get the interview. It is almost works against you. And the government is looking to overhaul it this year, by the end of the year. Um, and I don't have much confidence in the government to overhaul it, because I think the issue really lies in not making some changes around the edges. But if they're going to have this to encourage this hiring of the disabled, it needs to have some teeth. Hey, Wallace and Gromit. And it needs to have some teeth. And it doesn't have the teeth. It only gives you an interview. It doesn't say that they have to hire disabled. And a lot of times, is you know, and the problem really is you know with this is that it doesn't give you the interview. I mean, a lot of times you don't even get the interview, and if it does, there's no teeth to say to them, really, you should be encouraged to hire the disabled, because there is a very big gap, a 2-to-1 gap for every 2 people who are disabled and unemployed. There's only 1 person non-disabled unemployed, excuse me. And so there is a very much a systematic gap in that. And so what it really starts to mean, and what it should mean at this stage, is should be finding a way to make it easier to hire the disabled. And I think, in my own opinion, I don't believe that, from experiencing it firsthand, that the disability confidence scheme really has any teeth. It's not really Bethan, fit for purpose, and shifty solutions, and Mingle. It's not really fit for purpose, in the sense that there is no audit, so people can apply to get the scheme, they get the badge, put it on, say, hey, look at our DEI, look at our diversity involvement. Look, we're part of the disability confidence scheme, but there's no bite, there's no auditing to say, hey, look, you've had X amount of adverts, you've only hired X amount of disabled, or you opened up the scheme, to X amount of disabled individuals. There's nothing, absolutely nothing there. And it's so, in my opinion, and strictly my opinion, I think the scheme is a waste of taxpayers' money. It is I think a financial black hole that should either be modified so that it does have bite, and forces organizations who apply to it to actually commit to what they say they're committing to do, and or end it. And so, and again, I do want to be very clear. I'm not saying this is true with all organizations. And I think, to me, in my opinion, there is, I think, a bit of a split, because at the end of the day, this applies to both public sector and private sector and employers. And when we're talking public sector, there's less of a motivation for them to be really compliant, because, again, they receive, public support, public funding, through tax that's collected. And so there's nothing to really say that, hey, you got the badge, we need to ensure as a government, that you're committed to hiring disabled, and so really there isn't um, that kind of bite. And again, in the article that's coming out in just over 3 hours from now, it kind of talks about what does good look like, and kind of talks about the split between public sector and private sector. And I think to a certain point here, I think the private sector, at least from my experience, probably is a little bit better with it than the public sector, because there is, again, and I talk a little bit about in my writings on the other side, is that there is already tools in place, um, through the use of tax incentives, loss of contracts with the government, and fines and stuff that can really start to push. But I think when you start talking about public sector, that kind of motivation starts to be lost, and it starts to get, I think it gets lost. And I think that there needs to be a bit of, a real rethink on the disability confidence and access to work schemes, because I think both of them really fail miserably, and really in what they try to accomplish to do. And I don't think that they achieve what they're set to do. And again, I would say, check back in just over 3 hours when I post a link, and then you can take a look and read for yourself. And I will be back tomorrow at 4 a.m. British summertime, taking your questions. And anything career related. So, and I would also too encourage you to take a look at my other content, and I will be getting more today on. So, I want to thank you all for the likes, the shares, the follows, and the gifts, and I will see you back at 4 a.m. British summertime tomorrow. So I'm going to let Yep. And thank you, everyone.